A pink-haired girl sits at a lavish dinner, while a man narrates the history of the Spartans, the ancient defenders of their land. A red-haired man proudly recounts how Spartans were once the continent's most powerful people, born with incredible physical gifts. The tale continues. Spartan babies can stand within half a day of birth and command beasts before they can even speak. In their youth, they ride wild boars, a testament to their innate connection with nature and strength, and for their coming-of-age ceremony they must face the ultimate test, defeating a dragon with their bare hands. The man recalls how the Empire tamed their warrior spirit with titles and luxuries, a lifestyle he clearly despises. He scoffs in disgust, imagining his mighty ancestors reduced to lazy gluttons, and wonders if there's any greater humiliation. The red-haired man's eyes narrow as he addresses his daughter by name, Macaron, reminding her she is now of age. Macaron's red eyes widen as her father declares she must prove her strength as the next head of the Spartan family. From the dinner table, a voice asks permission to speak, and the father grants it, addressing his daughter. Macaron shocks him by confessing her true desire, to live a life of ease and marry into a good family, just like other ladies. She dreams of pretty dresses, tea parties, and poetry, insisting the life of a warrior just isn't for her. Looking nervous, she asks her father to give the family duties to her older brother instead. Her declaration sends the maids into a panic, who scramble to get ready as if a storm is about to hit. Macaron glares with annoyance, seemingly unfazed by the maid's strange reaction. She doubles down, confirming her decision with a firm and simple yes. Her dream is to be like the elegant ladies of high society, curtsying at a grand ball. Her father's face contorts with rage as he vows to show everyone the true quality of a Spartan lady. Ka! He unleashes his secret technique, explosive voice, his body transforming as he screams his daughter's name, Macaron. Quadruple A. The powerful shout devastates the dining room, sending food flying and the maids reeling in pain. Now shirtless and impossibly muscular, he forbids her from ever attending a debutante ball. But Macaron is ready, activating her own Spartan technique, speed-reading eyes. In a flash, she sees the exact trajectory of the dinnerware hurtling toward her. She's got this. Like a dancer, she elegantly twirls and dodges the barrage of flying food with impossible grace. Kya! Unfortunately for a nearby maid, dodging just means redirecting, and she takes a plate right to the face. Another maid watches in stunned silence, whispering, "My lady?" as Macaron continues her beautiful, food-dodging ballet. The maids stare in awe as Macaron strikes a final, graceful pose, thinking she's the very picture of a true lady. One maid is moved to tears, believing Macaron's hidden strength makes her a paragon for all other ladies, while Macaron just forces a weak laugh. A close-up of the proud, red-haired man is captioned with a simple, deadpan fact. He is my biological father. The victory is short-lived as blood suddenly bursts from Macaron's ear from the force of her father's shout. A maid screams in shock, pointing out that her lady is bleeding from her ear. In a horrifying display, blood erupts from both of Macaron's ears, and she collapses to the ground. The maids can only watch in shared, horrified silence. Huff, huff. Lying in a pool of her own blood, Macaron hears her father mock her for wanting to be a doll in a dress. The hulking father stands over his fallen daughter while the terrified maids look on, helpless. Crying, Macaron weakly defends the honor of the Empire's ladies. Her father roars that life is a battle, and useless pride has no place on the battlefield. A symbolic image appears, showing a Spartan warrior kneeling before their king, a relic of a bygone era. Showing zero mercy, he uses his explosive voice on his injured daughter once again. Ooh-ah. Macaron is knocked out cold as the maids cry out we haven't even given her the earplugs yet. The father, now calmly robed, orders the maids to carry her to her room, and they quickly obey. As they carry the unconscious Macaron from the grand mansion, the maids sadly whisper, "Let's go, my lady." Macaron lies resting in her bed, her eyes and ears heavily bandaged. An ornate chandelier sparkles overhead, signaling a shift in time. In a flashback, Macaron recalls that people fear those who are too strong, remembering her mother, the strongest woman in the Empire. A silhouette of her powerful, white-haired mother fills the frame. On the darkest, coldest New Year's Eve, her mother walked out into the snow, abandoning her family. A young Macaron prayed desperately, begging God to make it so cold that her mother would have to come back. Wah! But her prayers went unanswered as she cried out in the snow, watching her mother leave forever. Back in the present, a single tear escapes from beneath Macaron's bandages as she lies broken in her bed. Her red-haired father stares at her with a stern expression, commanding her to listen. He tells her she's not like other girls and can't just throw away the Spartan name to marry someone. Still blindfolded in bed, Macaron cries, heartbroken by her father's words. As night falls over the grand mansion, his voice tells her it's late and to go to sleep. The next morning, Macaron jolts awake in bed, her bandages still on, but her eyes now open. The maids throw open her doors, presenting a beautiful new dress with a flourish, leaving her stunned. She's ushered into a room filled with gowns as the maids announce that her father, the Count, ordered them all for her. Staring at the beautiful dresses and jewelry, Macaron wonders if her harsh father might actually care for her after all. Now in a stunning red ball gown, the maids congratulate her on her social debut, telling her she looks perfect. Stepping toward a carriage, she can hardly believe everything has changed overnight. In a golden carriage, she sets off on her journey to the distant Imperial capital. She smiles, dreaming of a romance that will make her heart race, vowing never to be lonely again. She fantasizes about the ball, maybe a handsome man will offer her a drink, or she'll trip and fall in love with the Grand Duke of the North, her ideal type. Her daydream continues as she imagines herself dancing with a mysterious, dark-haired man. The fantasy man is instantly captivated, proposing an eternal vow on a sleigh pulled by 20 wolves. Now that's what you call a grand gesture. She beams, imagining him proposing right then and there, making her the Grand Duchess of the North. She reminds herself of the #1 rule for any beloved lady: maintain a perfect poker face. The view outside the carriage shows trees and a bright blue sky as her journey continues. A masked driver expertly guides the horses, pulling her grand carriage. Suddenly, the carriage lurches to a stop, throwing her forward in her seat. She pops her head out, surprised they've arrived already, especially after she planned such a graceful exit. But instead of a bustling city, she sees a barren wasteland and realizes this isn't the Imperial capital, Castella. Wah. In the distance, her maids wave frantically, apologizing as the carriage leaves them behind. She asks them to wait. A look of pure shock spreads across her face as the awful truth begins to dawn on her. "I've been tricked," she cries, as an image of her father laughing maniacally fills her mind. She realizes he only pretended to take her to the capital, instead dumping her in the territory of the wilderness dragon. A map reveals her location is a full day's ride from the city, meaning she'll miss the ball entirely. Her eye twitches in fury as she screams internally, "I'm such an idiot!" A massive flock of birds suddenly takes flight, scattering across the sky as she stands alone. The chaotic flight of birds continues, signaling a massive disturbance. Looming over the mountains, a hulking red dragon appears, the source of the panic. She knows her father wants her to kill the dragon, but she has a better idea. Forget fighting, she's gonna tame it. The map shows her long journey, a trip that takes a full day by horse but could be a lot faster by dragon. A hand crackles with intense red energy, ready to be unleashed. She activates her power, the Spartan secret technique chapter of the Pouncing Leopard, vowing this will be the last time she uses her strength. Just as she's about to act, a man with brown hair appears, warning her to stand back from the dangerous creature. Macaron is completely caught off guard by the handsome stranger's sudden arrival. The two stand on opposite sides of the field, a tense standoff between them and the dragon. The mysterious man looks over his shoulder, wondering who this girl could be. Macaron stares back, her eyes wide with shock. This is not how she pictured meeting her dream man. The man snaps at her, telling her to stop gawking and get out of there. With a mighty crash, the dragon's tail slams into the ground right where he just stood. GRRRN. The dragon lands with a thud, growling menacingly as it faces Macaron. She watches in disbelief, wondering what is with this guy, and concluding he must be a complete idiot for getting himself killed. The massive dragon lowers its head, its glowing eyes fixed on her. With a ferocious roar, the dragon lunges forward to attack. Wiping away a tear, she steals her resolve, declaring she doesn't have time to mourn the dead. She unleashes her ultimate move, Roar of the Leopard's Claw, summoning immense golden chains from the heavens. The glowing chains rain down upon the startled dragon. Wrapped in the chains of her own power, Macaron stands ready to face the beast. Gwa! The dragon roars in agony as Macaron's golden chains wrap around it, trapping the beast mid-air. Gru! Now riding the enraged dragon, she holds the chains tight, forcing it to submit to her will. She makes it an offer it can't refuse. Fly her to the Imperial capital, or else. Her glowing red eye promises a world of hurt if it ever attacks a village again. With a powerful flap of its wings, the now tamed dragon soars through the clouds, heading for the capital. Holding on tight, she's amazed by the dragon tribe's legendary supersonic speed, but knows one wrong move means a long drop down. Squawk. A flock of birds flies right into her path, and one gets tangled in her energy chains, causing a mid-air traffic jam. She reaches back in panic, realizing her favorite red ribbon has been knocked loose. She can only watch as her precious ribbon is snatched away by the wind. Kia. The shock of losing her ribbon makes her lose her grip, and she begins to fall from the dragon's back. Plummeting towards the ground, she realizes her loss of focus made the restraining chains disappear completely. Just as she's about to fall, a massive claw grabs her, and the dragon thinks, if that's how it is. The dragon swoops down, clutching her gently as it descends. With her eyes glowing fiercely, Macaron grits her teeth, steeling herself to endure whatever comes next. In a shocking move, the dragon bites off its own tail, sending a spray of blood everywhere. She watches in disbelief as the dragon uses a lizard's ultimate escape tactic, sighing that nothing ever goes her way. The massive, severed dragon tail tumbles through the sky toward the forest below. She falls with it, crashing through the dense canopy of the trees. Her beautiful red dress snags on a branch, tearing the delicate fabric. She lands upside down on the forest floor, her grand entrance ruined. Dazed and covered in dirt, she lies on the ground, staring blankly at the sky. She slowly sits up, the full weight of her failure crashing down on her. It's over. She feels completely defeated, with no reason left to even keep trying. Staring at her torn dress, she laments that she can't go to the debutante ball now, certain everyone would just laugh at her. But then, her eyes harden with resolve. She remembers there's someone she still has to see. The scene shifts to a memory of an elegant garden tea party, where several young noble ladies are gathered. A blonde girl, introduced as Lady Eclair of House Custard, politely asks Macaron about her unusual dress. A much younger Macaron of House Spartan sits at the table, looking a bit out of place. Macaron proudly explains her dress was made with special fabric, and is a color her mother loved. Huh? She looks up, confused by something happening just out of frame. Lady Eclair smiles sweetly, reminding everyone that the Duke's Tea Party is an exclusive, invitation-only event. The guests are all daughters of the elite, magnates, artists, and royal magicians. Among such high-profile girls, Macaron felt that as the daughter of a Spartan count, she was as insignificant as a dessert pastry. She begins to worry that maybe her fancy dress was a bit too much for the occasion. Two other girls start gossiping, criticizing her hairstyle, and guessing she's just trying to copy Lady Eclair. Lady Eclair glances over and agrees with them, saying she can see the resemblance. Macaron silently admits to herself that it's true. She did imitate Eclair's hairstyle. She recalls how she always admired Eclair, a trendsetter who was dazzling and influential even without wielding a sword. Back at the party, she stares at her own distorted reflection in her teacup. She grips the cup, a flicker of anxiety in her eyes. Trying to sound impressive, Macaron declares that her mother styled her hair for her. Eclair looks surprised and asks for confirmation. Your mother did. Fifth, Macaron smiles, thinking she's cleverly diverted the conversation, but Eclair suddenly chokes back a laugh. Eclair bursts into laughter, unable to contain herself, before quickly apologizing. With a saccharine smile, Eclair asks a pointed question. Your mother isn't home, is she? Macaron's eyes widen in stunned silence. Eclair's voice reveals that the whole town knows Macaron's mother abandoned her family, telling her she doesn't have to lie about it. The world seems to tilt as Macaron is left speechless by the cruel remark. A cold dread washes over her, feeling like ice water trickling down her spine. Her face darkens with humiliation, but she forces herself to stay composed, determined not to ruin the mood. Determined to keep her composure, she tells herself to just smile and laugh it off. She tries to believe they're friends, and that's why she has to endure the cruel words. Snap! With glowing red eyes, a younger, pink-haired Macaron shatters her teacup, and Eclair screams as hot tea splashes her. Chaos erupts at the tea party as Macaron apologizes profusely, while the other girls demand to know what she's doing. In a flash of uncontrolled power, the entire table is sent flying cakes, sandwiches, and teacups everywhere. Her eyes wide with horror, she never realized the true extent of her own monstrous strength. While the other girls rush to help the one who was splashed, Macaron is left completely alone. Lady Eclair stares in shock, a single drop of red tea trickling down her cheek like a tear of blood. Macaron can only stare back, her mind racing as she thinks of Lady Eclair. Though the other girls say nothing, the terror in their eyes reveals exactly how they see her now. The memory fades into a lonely scene, isolating her from the shadowy figures of her peers. Back in the present, she clenches the fabric of her torn red dress, remembering what happened instead of an apology. Her chance to fix things ended before it even began, leaving her with only regret. Lying on the forest floor, she panics, realizing they'll just throw her out if she shows up in a shredded dress. With tears in her eyes, she picks herself up, a new resolve hardening her expression. A man with dark hair and a blood-splattered face suddenly appears in the darkness. He walks toward her through the eerie, glowing forest. Macaron looks up, completely caught off guard by the sudden arrival. She stares in disbelief, wondering why that person is here. Her mind flashes back to the dragon's attack as she wonders, didn't he get crushed to death? The man just smiles, showing off a tiny dragon on his arm as she tries to process how he survived. She closes her eyes, thinking that even if he survived being stepped on, a fall from that height should have been fatal. He turns the question back on her, asking how she managed to survive the same fall. Macaron is left speechless by his casual question. She nervously introduces herself, stating she's from House Spartan. As she speaks her family name, a golden aura suddenly flares around her. The man smiles, impressed. Just as the rumors said, he thinks, you're strong. Surprised by the golden glow now surrounding him, she asks if he's a cleric instead of a warrior. He explains his healing ability is unique, going far deeper than just mending surface wounds. His power is legendary, capable of curing any disease, even those thought to be incurable. He then asks if she's ever heard of the Tureen family from the east. Macaron gasps in shock, recognizing the name of the infamous Cursed family. She quickly apologizes for her reaction, but he just sighs, admitting he's used to being discriminated against. The Cursed House of Tureen is a family shrouded in mystery and death, their castle a place of dread. Legends say they wither all plant life, and that every plague begins where they live. Macaron pieces it together. They're rumored to spread disease, but can also heal the incurable. Looking down, she realizes her own scrapes and bruises are gone, confirming his power. I'm healed, she thinks. She understands now. He draws life energy from the forest itself to heal wounds. That's how he survived the fall, by using the very life force of the forest. She realizes with horror that he's absorbing other lives and converting them into healing power for himself. Macaron is visibly disturbed by the dark nature of his ability. Stop it, she yells, grabbing his arm. This is enough. He simply smiles, confirming that she's figured it out. Healing always comes at a price. A lesson from an old master explains the principle. To restore one life, another must be sacrificed, and plants are the easiest to take. As he speaks, the lush plants around them begin to wilt and die. They stand in silence for a moment, the weight of his words hanging in the air. He then walks over to the dragon's severed tail, and she wonders what he means by materials. He gestures toward the massive, fleshy stump of the dragon's tail. A brilliant idea sparks in Macaron's mind. The dragon's severed tail is still fresh, a perfect material for her own plans. The man enthusiastically agrees with her unspoken plan, much to her comical annoyance. He explains that her new dress is made of dragon scales, which have incredible regenerative power and won't vanish until midnight. She marvels at her sleeve, absolutely thrilled to be wearing a magical dress made from dragon scales. Overjoyed, she gives him a big hug, promising to repay him someday, and asking for his name after introducing herself as Macaron. He smiles and formally introduces himself as Ganache Tureen. Ganache sits beside the recovering dragon, explaining he needs to heal it, noting that mother dragons can be aggressive after laying eggs. A cute baby dragon appears as the narration explains that dragons sometimes attack villages to feed their young. He suspects the mother is nearby, and Macaron reflects on her clan's ruthlessness before worrying about the long journey to the capital. With a determined step, she sets off on her way. She dashes off into the woods, calling back a final thank you and promising to visit him again. Ganache watches her go with a knowing smile. Her resolve is ironclad as she races toward her destination, the debut ball. The scene shifts to the magnificent Castella Royal Palace, glistening under a full moon. A luxurious carriage wheel rolls to a stop before the palace entrance. A man with long white hair steps out, immediately recognized by the gasping crowd as the legendary Silver Wolf of the North, Duke Montblanc. With a cold expression, The Duke stands silently as onlookers gossip that he's finally of marrying age. He is Sherbet Vanilla Mont Blanc, head of the ducal family and scion of a notorious house of assassins. Though a hardened warrior, bandaged and battle-worn, his reputation was about to be overshadowed. Yeah, the ladies of the court can't contain their excitement, their eyes turning to hearts at the sight of him. They rush to congratulate him on becoming the youngest sword master in history, as the narrator notes his ironic and breathtaking beauty. Elsewhere, a nervous young woman apologizes after bumping into a blonde lady, asking if she's all right. Ow! The blonde woman sharply smacks her hand away with a fan. Please don't touch me so casually, the blonde woman snaps, her expression icy. The other woman stammers in shock, unable to believe what she just heard. Her friends rush to her side, demanding to know what's wrong with the other woman and asking if Lady Eclair is hurt. Lady Eclair strikes a confident pose, praised for her exceptional beauty, intelligence, and charm. A true trendsetter, she is already defining an entire era of elegance. With a pristine smile, she basks in the attention, knowing all of high society has been waiting for her debut. Eclair approaches the Duke, casually asking if he's tired from his long journey. But after being ignored, she fumes, "Don't you know who I am? I'm one of the most famous women in the Empire." Her face falls in utter disbelief at the silent rejection. Furious at the slight, she glares daggers, thinking how dare these insects treat her so insolently. One of Eclair's ladies scolds a dark-haired girl named Juju, telling her to hurry up and follow their angry mistress. Juju scurries after them, passing the completely unfazed Duke. The Duke sighs, thinking debutante balls are a pain, while ignoring swooning ladies asking for a dance. Suddenly, his attention is caught by something, his eyes widening in surprise. He stares intently at the grand ballroom doors, feeling a strange energy. He senses an ominous presence surging from beyond the palace walls. Just then, a powerful monstrous aura announces a dramatic entrance as Macaron arrives. The Duke immediately concludes it's a monster attack and tells himself to calm down. He prepares to unleash his sword aura, ready to strike down whatever comes through the doors. With a heavy creak, the massive doors swing open. But instead of a beast, Macaron peeks in, looking radiant and surrounded by a magical aura of flowers. Whoa! She's completely stunned by the dazzling beauty of the Imperial ballroom. She gazes at the bustling party, taking in the grand spectacle. She quickly notices one person staring right at her, the white-haired Duke. A playful smile crosses her face as she wonders, "Don't tell me. Has he already fallen for me?" The Duke, however, is thinking something very different, recognizing her dress as dragon leather and concluding she's there to kill everyone. Macaron stands at the entrance, capturing the attention of the entire room. A hush falls over the crowd as all eyes, including Lady Eclair's, turn to the newcomer. Eclair takes a slow sip from her glass, a smirk playing on her lips as she recognizes her old rival. "Macaron? So you actually came," she thinks. Eclair scoffs at Macaron's vulgar dress, while a guest wonders about its unique material. Though others gossip, Macaron just smiles, aware her dress looks incredibly expensive. Suddenly, she hears someone calling for Lady Eclair, her heart skipping a beat. Macaron watches with a sad expression as Eclair turns her back and walks away. As a musician begins to play, the ballroom's gentle melody fills the air. Left all alone on the dance floor, Macaron looks completely out of place. Meanwhile, men line up to ask Lady Eclair for a dance, much to the envy of the other girls. Just then, the Duke, Sherbet Mont Blanc, steps out from behind a grand curtain. A formal introduction rings out, announcing the young head of the Mont Blanc family. To everyone's surprise, he approaches Macaron and gives a formal bow. Looking directly at her, the Duke calmly asks for the honor of a dance. She accepts, and the two stand opposite each other, ready to begin. An onlooker is confused, thinking the infamous Duke was rumored to have black hair. Eclair watches from the sidelines, her eyes wide with shock as she thinks, "No way." She can't believe it, wondering why on earth the Grand Duke would choose to dance with Macaron. Sherbet looks down at Macaron with a cold, analytical gaze. He internally scoffs at her dragon leather dress, calling it a pathetic and nauseating display. They bow to each other, marking the official start of their dance. He reminds himself to be careful, recalling his training on how to handle a lady. Macaron looks up at him, her cheeks flushed with excitement. As their hands meet, she thinks it's the first time she's ever been so close to a man. Wah! Her excitement is short-lived as she accidentally stomps right on his foot. Mortified, she apologizes profusely and asks if he's alright, but he's not alrightin'. X-ray view reveals his toe was completely shattered by the blow. He winces, realizing his mistake. This woman is no delicate lady, he thinks to himself, stunned that such a bold, powerful young lady exists in the Empire. The crowd, however, sees a different story, gushing over how dazzling and perfect they look together. Despite his injury, the two continue their dance across the floor. They move in perfect sync, capturing the attention of everyone in the room. Sherbet leads with a steady hand, his expression unreadable. Macaron is amazed, wondering why she's suddenly able to dance so well. She feels so comfortable in his lead that she could lose herself in the music. Just as she's getting lost in the moment, she steps on his foot again. A stark contrast forms between her joyful expression and his grim one. He thinks to himself, trying to comprehend the source of her immense power. This slender girl possesses strength that overwhelms even him, the continent's youngest swordmaster. He recalls a woman's advice. The moment you find something adorable, it's already over. He wonders why she looks up at him with such innocent eyes. And why the sight of her? Crunch! She steps on him again, shouting an apology. Looks like his entire foot is done for. Oblivious, she worries that step was harder than the last and asks if he's okay. She looks up at him with genuine concern, still completely unaware of the damage she's causing. Defeated, Sherbet covers his blushing face and admits he's lost. Around them, other nobles continue to waltz gracefully. The guests are impressed, whispering that the two are still dancing together. They look on in admiration as the pair twirls beautifully across the floor. The dance continues, with Sherbet leading her in a final, elegant turn. Spectators comment that their dance is less of a waltz and more of an amazing, intense duel. But reality comes crashing down, or rather, stomping down on his foot one last time. Ugh! A massive shockwave of power erupts as he cries out in pain from the final, devastating blow. Whoosh! Blue magic crackles around her feet as she lands with purpose. Macaron's internal monologue reveals she can heal bones, but there's a serious catch. In a dance lesson flashback, she realizes she's completely outmatched and apologizes for a misstep. Determined, she tells herself she can't make any mistakes and needs to focus. The white-haired Duke leads her across the floor, his expression stern, while she looks on in surprise. He grunts in frustration, thinking to himself that he just can't find an opening in her awkward defense. A blonde woman watching from the sidelines is stunned that the Northern Silver Wolf is so tense, noting he's stuck with one partner all night. As her dress twirls, Macaron has a sudden realization about the Duke's movements. The blonde woman scoffs, unable to believe Duke Montblanc could possibly be interested in that type of woman. She haughtily thinks that Macaron has absolutely no decency. She strikes a graceful pose, a picture of refined elegance. An onlooker notes that she's likely the only person bold enough to perform a solo dance in front of her partner. As she dances with another man, the narration explains her performance is so enchanting it's like wandering into a garden of blue roses. The crowd applauds as she and her partner take the spotlight, praising the Empire's star, Lady Eclair. Eclair smirks with absolute confidence, thinking no one can dance better than her. She basks in her own glory, convinced no man in the Empire could ever refuse her. She turns with a sweet, knowing smile, her eyes finding their target. But as she watches the Duke and Macaron dance from afar, her confidence begins to crumble. She wonders how he could possibly find this awkward country girl appealing. Her hand trembles as she clenches her fist, a horrifying thought crossing her mind. Does this mean I've lost? For the first time in her life, the undefeated Lady Eclair tastes the bitterness of defeat. Just then, a blond man in a royal uniform approaches, holding out his hand to her. He offers her a charming smile, his hand extended in a clear invitation. Eclair gasps, blushing furiously as she recognizes him as the Crown Prince. She immediately drops into a perfect curtsy, formally greeting the son of the Empire. The other ladies in the crowd can hardly contain their excitement, shocked that the Crown Prince has made a public appearance. Eclair recalls hearing that he was supposed to be swamped with administrative work. The prince feigns sadness, telling her he's hurt by such a formal greeting. Eclair looks up, completely flustered by his playful complaint. He stands before her, a commanding yet gentle presence. He smiles warmly, complimenting her on how much she's grown into a fine lady. A sweet memory surfaces of the prince as a boy, holding a much younger Eclair's hand. She blushes, admitting to herself that Prince Tart has grown up too, and she almost didn't recognize him. As he takes her hand, the party guests begin to gossip, noting that Eclair is the first person he's spoken to all night. They share an intimate gaze before beginning their dance. The new power couple strikes a perfect pose, looking every bit the fairy tale prince and princess. A narration explains that her family, the Custards, are like a branch of the Castella royal family. A brief history lesson reveals that two blonde-haired men, Castella and Custard, founded the new continent and the Imperial capital. And with that, the history of their great continent began. Eclair blushes like a chibi, admiring a portrait of her younger, equally adorable self. Her thoughts, however, drift back to the one who got away, Duke Montblanc. Meanwhile, Macaron is all smiles, clearly enjoying her night. Suddenly, a hand reaches out towards her. Elsewhere, perched on a tree branch, the mysterious dark-haired man watches the distant castle. He muses to himself that it's about time to get things started. Petting a small, red dragon-like familiar, he decides to let Macaron handle the rest on her own. He looks on with a cool, confident expression, his plans set in motion. Back in the ballroom, Macaron thinks about her dress, revealing it's actually made of dragon tissue molded to her wounded skin like scabs. In a flashback, the man explains the dress will heal her, but she must leave before midnight, a Cinderella story with a much higher price tag. Kia! The crowd shrieks as Macaron stands alone, her dress now tattered and torn. Just as she's about to fall, a pair of gloved hands reach out to catch her. Sherbet catches her, holding her gently as he looks down with concern. His eyes widen in alarm as a strange power begins to glow from her. Bam! An incredible force sends him flying backwards across the ballroom floor. The impact shatters the floor, shocking a nearby guest. A hush falls over the crowd as Macaron stands alone in the grand entrance. Eclair smirks, thinking Macaron is just a pathetic daughter of a fallen house, with nothing to be proud of. Nearby, a blonde man in a military uniform blushes, completely captivated by the sight of Macaron. Eclair, however, just looks on with a smug expression. The scene shifts to the exterior of the grand estate at night. Macaron is huddled outside on a cold stone bench, shivering all alone. She buries her face in her arms and begins to cry. Humiliated, she thinks she must have been a laughingstock to everyone inside. She sobs, not believing her magical dress would get torn so easily. Wah! She wails in despair, feeling like her entire world has just ended. Suddenly, a warm cloak is gently draped over her shoulders. The blonde man apologizes for startling her, saying he just thought she looked cold. Flustered, Macaron looks up in shock, her heart pounding. Her eyes widen as she realizes who he is, Crown Prince Tart. Confused, she wonders why someone who was with Lady Eclair is suddenly talking to her. More importantly, she's stunned she didn't even sense his presence until he was right behind her. He smiles warmly, addressing her as Lady Spartan. She formally introduces herself as Macaron Milbury Spartan, and he replies that his name is Tart. He then tells her he's surprised to find such a beautiful lady among the prestigious Spartan knight family. She blushes furiously, completely floored by his compliment. She tries to calm down, wondering why she's getting so flustered. With a grateful blush, she thanks him, admitting it's the first time anyone has said such words to her. She thinks to herself how kind he is for rushing over just to give her his cloak. Just then, a guard is heard frantically calling for the crown prince. Macaron gasps, startled by the guard's voice. The prince quickly moves her behind him, out of sight. He glances back at her with a reassuring smile. Shh. As the guard calls out again, he brings a finger to his lips with a playful look. Macaron is completely mesmerized, staring at him with wide, captivated eyes. The prince calmly directs the guards to search elsewhere. Turning back to Macaron, he thanks her and says she's a nice lady. Her heart skips a beat, completely smitten. With a final wave, he hopes they can meet again someday. Huh? A flash of purple light erupts where he was standing. She stares in disbelief. He's completely gone. She'd heard His Highness could use magic, but she never imagined he could teleport. Blushing, she thinks he was way cooler than she imagined and hopes she can see him again. Her eyes sparkle with a newfound crush. She looks down at her tattered dress, now covered by his royal cloak. Lost in thought, she stands alone in the night. But she can't help but wonder if a day where they meet again will ever really come. The camera pans up to a breathtaking, starry night sky. Elsewhere, Ganasha walks through a moonlit forest, carrying the small, sleeping dragon. The baby dragon's eye pops open, suddenly awake and alert. The baby dragon suddenly starts trembling in Ganasha's arms, who asks what's wrong. Ganache stares ahead, with a serious, determined expression. As dark smoke begins to swirl around his feet, he wonders if something is there. Boom! A terrifying vortex of dark energy erupts right in front of him. He recoils from the terrible stench, wondering why a strange hole would suddenly appear here. He crouches to investigate the dark energy as the little dragon leaps away, growling fiercely. Ignoring the danger, he cautiously reaches out to touch the swirling black smoke. The moment his hand makes contact, a searing dark power surges violently through him. Ugh! He cries out, shocked as a painful corruption spreads across his hand. The baby dragon watches in alarm as Ganasha stumbles back from the dark energy. The little dragon glares ahead, its expression fierce and ready for a fight. Horrified, Ganasha realizes his hand has been completely rotted by the dark magic. He immediately tries to counter it, casting a powerful healing light on his corrupted hand. Despite the brilliant flash of magic, the dark decay remains completely untouched. He stares at his hand in disbelief, realizing his healing magic is useless against this curse. Examining a corrupted piece of rock, he determines this disease can't be treated with normal means. He recognizes the affliction, the horrifying black disease from ancient history, which corrupts the body and agonizes the soul. It was supposedly sealed 1,000 years ago, but rumors of its return in the New World fill him with dread. He grimly concludes that at this rate, 2/3 of the people in the New World are doomed to die. He realizes his only option is to find and seal all the breeding grounds, a task he can't possibly do alone. Lost and desperate, he wonders if there is anyone in the world he can ask for help. The scene shifts to a vibrant dream of Macaron, portrayed as the perfect model for all young ladies. In her dream, she's surrounded by adoring suitors, one of whom desperately begs her to marry him. 2 men with hearts in their eyes promise her mansions, jewels, and anything she desires. As she smiles beautifully, a voice calls out her name, Macaron. Tick-tock. As the clock nears its final hour, the voice calls out to her again. Suddenly, her dream turns into a nightmare as she's grabbed from all sides. Kya! Her beautiful fantasy shatters as she lets out a piercing scream. Ah! Macaron gasps as she falls backward, waking abruptly from her dream. She stares up at her bedroom chandelier, realizing with relief that it was all just a dream. She sadly recalls her father's disappointed words after the party, keeping her confined to the mansion ever since. Alone with her thoughts, she reflects on how nothing has changed since that humiliating day. The scene focuses on a single cup of tea, emphasizing her quiet solitude. She sits alone at her table, admitting to herself that she's neglected her mail for over a month. While sipping her tea, she reads that her rival, Lady Eclair, is once again on the cover of a popular magazine. Looking at Eclair's perfect portrait, Macaron feels like she's the only one being left behind. Huh? As she flips through the magazine, she discovers a letter that was tucked inside. Holding the wax-sealed envelope, she wonders who could have possibly sent it. She frantically realizes it's a letter from the Duke himself, and wonders how long it's been sitting there. She reads the letter, touched by his formal but kind concern for her well-being. Mortified, she realizes she's ignored a letter from the Duke for an entire month. Yikes. Talk about leaving someone on read. The scene shifts to the white-haired Duke, Sherbet, sitting with a cold and imposing aura. Macaron rushes into the room, looking nervous to finally meet with him. Your Grace, she says, formally greeting him as they sit down for tea. She quickly apologizes, claiming she was too ill to read his letter until today. He eyes her suspiciously, questioning if she was truly sick. Yes, she replies, while internally kicking herself for using such a lame excuse. The Duke suggests an herbal tea to help with her cold, leaving Macaron a bit confused. She bashfully thanks him for his concern, though she's still completely flustered. His mind drifts back to the ball as he admits to himself that not a single day has passed without him thinking of her. In a quiet moment over tea, the Duke recalls his initial frustration at not understanding his feelings. He realized that only by seeing her again could he truly grasp the emotion he was experiencing. Hearing his heartfelt confession, Macaron blushes, completely flustered. She takes a nervous sip of tea, thinking his words sound suspiciously like a confession of love. A memory flashes of a carriage arriving after a long journey, with someone exclaiming, 6 days? Macaron calmly sips her tea, considering that a 6-day trip from the northern front to the capital Sounds about right. She quietly eats her dessert, processing the long journey he must have made to see her. Snapping out of her thoughts, she looks up, puzzled by his sudden silence. The Grand Duke suddenly grits his teeth, his hand straining to hold his teacup. His face darkens with exhaustion as his cup trembles, and she asks if he's okay. Surrounded by question marks, Macaron is completely baffled by his sudden change in demeanor. A realization hits him. The cup's weight is abnormal. A powerful energy radiates from it as he struggles. He wonders if the plates and forks are just as impossibly heavy. He even questions if the maids are human, as one cheerfully hums while carrying a huge, heavy stack of dishes. His piercing purple eyes narrow. He realizes this cup isn't simply heavy, there's more to it. A crackling blue aura surrounds him as he channels his power just to lift the teacup. Macaron watches with utter confusion as he visibly struggles to bring the cup to his lips. He takes a sip and confirms his suspicion. It's a special material that can only be lifted by channeling aura. This place is a gym disguised as a mansion. In a memory, Macaron proudly shows him her greenhouse, explaining that gardening is her hobby. She points out her most treasured possession, a beautiful pot of pink roses. "Would you like to smell it?" she asks sweetly, offering him the flowers. Thud! He immediately drops the impossibly heavy pot, which cracks the stone floor, leaving him stunned as she asks if he's all right. Mortified, he apologizes for breaking her precious pot, but she cheerfully reassures him she can fix it. To his astonishment, she effortlessly picks up the entire heavy pot with one hand. The memory continues, showing her casually balancing the massive flower pot and another vase with perfect ease. Back in the present, the Duke steels himself, thinking he can't let his guard down around her for a single second. The narrator explains the strict tradition of the Spartan family. All members must master swordsmanship by age 10. Holding a massive sheathed sword, Macaron humbly says she can handle herself, but is nothing compared to him. The Duke picks up a wooden practice sword, instantly realizing it's also made of the special, aura-activated material. He deduces that she must be constantly training her aura just by living her daily life. Macaron looks up with a sudden, surprised expression. A man in brown trousers appears, introducing himself as Sherbet Montblanc, the eldest son of his family. The scene cuts to the Grand Duke, who points his sword forward and formally challenges her to a duel. Macaron is completely blindsided, sputtering, "Wait, what? Why all of a sudden?" In the training yard, the two face off as the Duke ties back his long white hair, preparing for battle. Now dressed for combat, Macaron stands ready, her long pink hair tied back with a large bow. He takes his first powerful step, the ground cracking slightly under his foot. The Duke's aura flares as he notes that she is already quite powerful just from her stance. His glowing eyes reveal his inner thought. Her perfect form is undeniable proof of her tremendous training. A confident smirk crosses his face as he thinks, "This is interesting, Lady Macaron." He unleashes a powerful downward strike, charging at her with incredible speed. She easily parries his heavy blow with her own wooden sword. With a swift movement, she dodges his follow-up attack. In a stunning display of agility, she leaps over his head and lands perfectly behind him as he reacts in shock. Their swords clash with a force that sends shockwaves through the air. The Duke is bewildered, wondering how in the world she got behind him so fast. But Macaron pauses, a flicker of confusion in her eyes as she thinks to herself that something feels weird. As they continue to spar, she easily blocks his attack, her mind still trying to solve the puzzle. She analyzes his form, realizing his movements feel far too obvious and predictable. Her red eyes widen as she looks closer, sensing something is fundamentally wrong with his fighting style. As Macaron spars with the white-haired Duke, she wonders if he's deliberately holding back his strength. She recalls her brutal training with her father, thinking this current duel feels like child's play in comparison. The Duke swings his sword, unleashing a powerful wave of blue energy. Macaron easily blocks his attack, worrying that she might hurt his pride if she wins too quickly. Bang! But her sword is suddenly knocked from her hand, sent spinning through the air. It lands with a thud, embedding itself deep into the training grounds. She feigns defeat, thinking she made it look like the sword naturally slipped from her hand. But she immediately changes her mind, saying no. The Duke sees right through her act, accusing her of losing on purpose when she could have won. He's furious, yelling that deceiving her partner is an insult and demands she fight him with her full strength. He powers up, his sword crackling with an intense, intimidating aura. She's taken aback by his sudden intensity. Her eyes widen, realizing he's not messing around anymore. He screams in frustration, wanting a real fight, not just a way for him to save face. Her eyes glow red as she realizes he's right. She needs to give it her all as their swords clash. With a newfound determination, she meets his gaze as their blades grind together. A massive shockwave of power erupts from their clash, illuminating the entire training ground. The dust settles, and Macaron stands composed after the powerful exchange. Her expression shifts to one of surprise. The Duke smirks, looking confident after their last exchange. A small cut appears on his cheek, but he seems more thrilled than hurt. But then, his strength gives out as he drops his sword and collapses to his knees. Stunned, Macaron watches him fall and anxiously asks if he's okay. She rushes to his side in a panic, offering to call for a doctor immediately. He clutches his chest with a gloomy expression, realizing something important and telling her they need to talk. She blushes, confused, wondering what he could possibly want to discuss now. He blushes deeply, looking at her with intense emotion as he wonders what he's about to say. His face flushed, he looks at her desperately and makes a humble request. He gently takes her hand in his. Kneeling before stunned Macaron, he asks her to become his master. Guess that's one way to get a mentor. The scene transitions to a grand mansion basking in the evening sun. Haha! Inside, her red-haired father reacts with utter shock. KGH. Watching a memory of their duel, he clenches his fist, thinking, "I'll win this time!" As he relives the intense moment, he recalls Macaron's fierce declaration that the match was just beginning. The memory ends with both of them completely exhausted and out of breath. Even then, the Duke refused to give up, screaming that he couldn't let it end like this. Macaron, however, was clearly getting annoyed. Having had enough, she literally punches him out of the estate, yelling for him to just go home already. And so, the great Duke of the North was unceremoniously kicked out. Back in the present, her father is still in disbelief, shocked that a man and woman could practice alone all night. He scoffs at the Duke's supposed dignity, thinking he's far weirder than he ever imagined. He turns to Macaron, patting her head and telling her she's made a good friend. He tells her to be proud, advising that capturing someone's heart is no easy feat. Touched by his words, Macaron looks up at him, blushing and completely speechless. She ponders his words, wondering if she really did capture the Grand Duke's heart. The scene introduces Sherbet Vanilla Montblanc, eldest son of a prestigious northern sword family. It's foretold that he would become her first friend, and that the powerful Lady Macaron's name would be recorded in history. Carrying the dessert, she reflects on his strange request for her to become his master. Later that night, she looks out at the bright full moon. She smiles, remembering that the moon is just as bright as it was on the night she met a certain someone. Ganache thanks her for her time, promising to visit again, as he wonders if she's as happy as he is right now. Back in her room, Macaron looks out at the moon, doubting she'll ever get the chance to properly thank him. Huh? Her head whips around as she's startled by a sudden noise. She peeks out the window, wondering if something is outside. Whoosh! In a flash, a cloaked figure grabs her arm from the balcony. Terrified, she demands to know who the intruder is. The mysterious figure wears a plague doctor mask and holds a strange, glowing lantern. But her fear quickly turns to annoyance as she calls him an idiot for sneaking in. Wham! A powerful impact shakes the mansion. Thud. The intruder lies unconscious on the floor as she stands over him, completely unfazed. She scoffs, wondering if he fainted, and decides to check his face before he's discovered. With a quick motion, she removes the strange mask. Her eyes go wide with shock as she sees who's underneath. "Ganache!" she exclaims, utterly baffled as to why he's here. He lies unconscious on the floor, the strange lantern he was holding still faintly glowing. She starts to panic, unsure of what to do. She frets, realizing she can't call anyone for help without looking suspicious. She realizes with a groan that she knocked him out on pure reflex without even asking why he came. She knows it should have taken him 3 days to get here, and worries that something terrible has happened. Deciding to handle it herself, she sneaks out to get a damp towel, hoping to avoid a commotion. She returns with a basin of cool water. She quietly makes her way back to her room. But before tending to him, she peeks around the door with an idea. She heads straight for her bookshelf. Ah, there it is. She pulls out a specific set of books. Opening one, she begins to read about a noble family from the eastern part of the capital. The text describes them as a cursed lineage, and her expression darkens. It details how countless plagues have ravaged the family's lands. The devastation was so complete that even the trees and grass died out. After centuries of failed countermeasures, the Imperial family finally abandoned the Tureen family. They became recluses, ceasing all appearances at royal events. The book claims the source of every plague lies in the Tureen family's illegal human experiments. As she reads, she thinks about how history paints his family as cruel and inhuman. She glances over at Ganash's peaceful, sleeping face, but carrying the basin back, she admits she can't see him as the monster the books describe. She recalls how he helped her when she was in trouble, wringing out a cloth for his fever. Memory of her collapsed in a dark forest surfaces as she acknowledges the eerie rumors surrounding him. But she also remembers him saving her, and the happy moment they shared. Her eyes soften as she gazes down at him. Ugh. As she leans closer, she notices an eyelash has fallen onto his cheek. She blushes, admitting to herself that with his long lashes, he's actually quite handsome. His eyes suddenly snap open, catching her completely off guard. Wah! The sound of another punch echoes through the room. Ugh! I did it again! She panics, realizing she reflexively knocked him out for a second time. Leaning over him guiltily, she apologizes and gently dabs his forehead with a cool claw. Her attention is caught by a sudden flash of light. The lantern he dropped begins to glow brightly, its strange form pulsing with energy. She watches with a sad expression as she notes that the firefly's light is fading. As the light dissipates into tiny sparkles, Ganache seems to stir. Golden light surrounds him as he sleeps, a peaceful expression on his face. The House of Tureen is a cursed family, rumored to spread plagues across the continent. The curse was said to be so powerful that it killed everything: trees, grass, and even animals. But that wasn't the real story. The truth is, they were a family who absorbed life in order to heal the life of the rivers. Staring at him, she's torn, wondering if that power is incredible or terrifying, just as his gloved hand suddenly grabs hers. He looks up at her with a soft, knowing smile. She's completely flustered by his sudden awakening. He gently says her name, Macaron. Sitting up, a now conscious Ganache looks around confused, asking where he is. He winces, clutching his head in pain. She scrambles over, asking if he's okay, and admitting her punch must have really hurt. Looking up at the ornate ceiling, she explains that he's in her room and has been out for a while. He deadpans. I didn't fall asleep, you punched me. She has no comeback for that. She defends her actions, arguing that force was her only option when a masked man snuck into her room at night. Getting down to business, she asks why he came all this way. He remains silent, his expression grim. He sits on the edge of the bed and finally tells her, I came to ask for your help. He picks up a quill, preparing to illustrate his point. As he writes, he delivers the grim news. The continent is on the brink of a great calamity. He calls it the black hole of corruption, drawing a swirling vortex to represent the disaster. He explains that tainted mana is gushing from the hole, the result of it festering underground. He quizzes her on the natural circulation of mana throughout the world. He begins the history lesson, explaining that centuries of war have ravaged the land, which she vaguely recalls from class. The grim result: tens of thousands are buried in unmarked graves every single year. As the bodies decayed, he explains, they threw the entire balance of the land into chaos. But that was just the beginning. The pure mana of the earth mixed with the blood of the dead, creating a violent, toxic reaction. The scene transitions, showing a single drop corrupting a pool of pure water. The once pure mana gained the power to corrupt, finally erupting onto the surface from below. She's stunned, finding it hard to believe that mana could even react in such a catastrophic way. He somberly adds that some might call it the vengeance of the dead. Looking at her with determination, he declares that they have to stop the damage caused by the hole. He clenches his fist, resolving to use his own healing ability to save those afflicted if he must. A vision appears of Macaron's immense power, showing her facing a dragon as a voice declares her strength will become even greater. He tells her that, with her power, they can stop the black disease from spreading across the continent. He looks at her with desperate hope, asking, will you become the source of my healing? Her eyes widen, completely taken aback by his intense request. They sit together in a grand, throne-like room as she processes his words. She admits that his story is terrifying, and she's not sure what to think about it all. He looks down, understanding her hesitation. But a moment later, her expression shifts into one of gentle resolve. Misreading her look entirely, he raises his hand and makes a solemn vow. I promise to take care of you for the rest of my life. Her eyes go wide with shock at his sudden, out-of-left-field proposal. He continues his declaration, promising to stay by her side and save her, leaving her utterly flustered by his directness. Trying to backtrack, she insists that's not what she wants at all. Mortified, she tries to find the words to explain herself, but he just asks what she wants instead. She's completely speechless, her face burning red. Wham! She snaps, yelling at him for what he's saying as she decks him for the third time. Her fists have a one-track mind. She panics, realizing he was just jumping to conclusions while he lies unconscious on the floor again. His eyes have turned to spirals as she thinks, I made him faint again. She collapses in despair, holding her head and crying out that she gives up. The chaotic night ends with a calm, quiet view of the mansion under the moonlight. The next morning, birds chirp peacefully over the grand mansion. Thud. In her bed, Macaron is fast asleep on Ganash's chest, but he is wide awake and acutely aware of their compromising position. Morning after is filled with a heavy, gloomy silence as Macaron is consumed by a dark cloud of despair. She desperately begs her maid, Meringue, to keep his presence a secret from her father, and the loyal maid immediately agrees. With a laugh that doesn't quite reach her eyes, Macaron insists they're just friends. But Meringue's skeptical reply says it all. She doesn't believe me at all, Macaron thinks with a sigh, as her maid gives her a knowing little smile. But the maid continues gently, saying that having her friend visit seems to have made her much more cheerful, much to Macaron's surprise. Touched, Macaron whispers her name as Meringue thoughtfully offers to bring breakfast directly to her room. So no one else finds out, of course, she adds, with a conspiratorial wink. Best Wingmate of the Year award goes to her. As the maid chuckles, a flustered Macaron tries to defend herself, all while Ganache quietly watches the scene unfold. He can't help but crack a small, amused smile. Wow! Meringue has prepared a beautiful breakfast, cleverly using commoners' tableware to avoid any suspicion. Over breakfast, Meringue casually mentions that His Grace will be away on expeditionary training all afternoon. She then suggests the two of them take a walk around the domain, planting the perfect seed for a date. That's a great idea, Macaron thinks, excited about the chance to buy new seedlings. Turning to Ganache, she asks if he wants to go out together, and he looks up from his tea, intrigued. And so, the two head out for a day on the town. He gently helps her down the stone steps, a picture-perfect moment surrounded by blooming flowers. They arrive in a lively town square, bustling with vendors and townspeople. She acts as his guide, pointing out the local craft and antique shops as they stroll through the crowds. She remarks how strange it is that no one seems to recognize her, even though she's the ruler of the entire domain. With a sigh, she admits it's because she hardly ever makes public appearances. Why not? He asks, genuinely curious about her reclusive life. She confesses that for some reason, she was always afraid of being judged for not being as noble as the other lord's daughters. The memory of her old insecurities makes her fall silent. He looks at her with deep empathy and softly says, I know how that feels. His simple words of understanding echo in her mind, creating a trail of sparkles behind them as they walk. Their stroll eventually leads them to a small shop overflowing with colorful potted flowers. Together, they happily browse the seedlings, sharing a quiet, joyful moment. She holds up her chosen plant, a gentle and satisfied smile on her face. He watches her, his own expression soft and full of warmth. But in an instant, his gentle look vanishes, replaced by one of pure shock and alarm. His eyes lock onto a mysterious hooded figure, shrouded in dark energy, fleeing through the crowd. The figure radiates a sinister aura, and Ganache's instincts scream that something is terribly wrong. Without a second thought, he gives chase as the figure darts into an alley. He quickly corners the mysterious person, stopping them in their tracks. But the figure ignores him, turning and moving silently towards the still distracted Macaron. What's wrong? She asks, looking up at Ganache, but then her eyes catch the fleeing figure, and she feels a sudden urge to act. At the exact same moment, Ganache panics, realizing with dread that he has to follow that person. Her expression hardens with unshakable resolve, and she's off. Macaron explodes into motion, leaping forward with a burst of unbelievable speed. Ganache can only stare in utter disbelief. As she's fast, he thinks, completely stunned. Her feet pound against the cobblestones as she rapidly closes the distance. The hooded figure sprints desperately, trying to get away. With a powerful leap, she lands a solid punch, stopping the figure cold. She gets a firm grip on their cloak, refusing to let them escape. I've got you, she declares, holding on tight as they begin to struggle. Eek, let me go, the captured person squeals. But Macaron coolly informs them that struggling is useless. I said let go, they yell again, but she's done playing games and draws a blade, her expression deadly serious. Geez, she thinks, her crimson eye glaring with annoyance. The hooded man lets out a pained ugh as she maintains her iron grip on his cloak. He looks up in agony as Macaron recoils from a horrible smell, just as Ganache shouts her name in warning. A pair of black-gloved hands suddenly pull her back from the mysterious figure. It's Ganache, holding her protectively as he warns, "Don't touch him." He reveals the shocking truth. The man is afflicted with the dreaded black disease. Overwhelmed, the infected man collapses to the ground in despair. The scene shifts to a grand, sunlit Imperial palace where a different crisis is unfolding. Inside the throne room, a councilman reports that the household water pollution has worsened, demanding urgent sewer renovations. He continues with grim news. The underground water is completely rotten, causing widespread stomach pains and a public health crisis. Another official adds that the sewers are now overflowing with rats and pests. A concerned young man with blonde hair worries that the upcoming summer rains will cause a catastrophic flood of filthy water. The king turns to the blonde man, asking for his opinion. "Yes, your majesty," Tart replies, ready to speak. Tart lays out a practical plan. Build embankments, increase manpower, and clean the pipes to prevent flooding. But then he dismisses his own advice, calling it an obvious solution that everyone already knows. With a chillingly calm expression, he asks if they think the Imperial court is merely a playground for passing time. The councilman flinches, quickly kneeling to reveal there's a far more serious matter at hand. He reports that across several territories, sewer caretakers have been mysteriously disappearing one after another. With over 10 people already missing, he implores them to investigate what's happening in the sewers. The man desperately begs His Majesty to dispatch soldiers to deal with the underground threat. Tart listens to the desperate plea in silence, his expression thoughtful. The scene flashes to a serene memory of him, surrounded by pristine white flowers. It's a surprisingly intimate moment, focusing on his sculpted physique. Turns out he's just taking a very fancy, very shirtless bath. Every good villain needs a spa day. As he steps out of the ornate pool, his thoughts are clearly elsewhere. A maid arrives, announcing that a letter has come from a Lady Custard. Lounging with a drink, he seems surprised. "Eclair sent a letter?" he murmurs to himself. Now, robed and relaxed, he begins to read her well wishes. The letter was penned with an elegant feather quill. The sender is revealed to be a beautiful blonde woman named Eclair. She signs off, sincerely looking forward to his reply. Tart holds the letter, his face an unreadable mask of contemplation. Whoosh! In his mind, the letter bursts into flames as he recalls a powerful memory. He remembers seeing Macaron, thinking to himself that she was like a flame. Back in the present, he takes a slow sip of his drink, mulling over his thoughts. A vision of Macaron appears behind him, his expression hardening with resolve. He sits alone in the quiet room, the letter from Eclair now resting on the table before him. He wonders why Macaron hasn't returned his cloak. Questioning if she's avoiding him, seems someone's got a little crush. He calls for a servant, and a maid immediately responds from the doorway. With a determined look, he gives a new order. Deliver a letter to House Spartan. Back in the alley, Ganache stands between Macaron and the kneeling man, reiterating that he is infected with the black disease. Macaron covers her nose, asking what the black disease is, and commenting on the awful smell. The man panics, pleading that he was just passing through and begging them not to chase him. He collapses, insisting it's not a plague, and revealing his fear of being killed if he's discovered by the capital's citizens. Macaron looks on with pity, asking if they've come to arrest him as he begins to beg for his life. "Please don't kill me," he pleads, promising to do anything they ask. A warm, golden light emanates from Ganache's hand as he calmly reveals his profession. "I am a doctor." He leads them to a desolate part of town, down a dark and narrow alleyway. Huddled in the shadows are more afflicted people, wrapped in blankets and hiding from the world. A person holds a crying baby, revealing the disease spares no one, not even the most innocent. They are immediately surrounded by the desperate, shadowy figures of the afflicted. "I can't believe it," Macaron thinks, her eyes wide with shock at the sight. A hooded man comforting a small boy thinks to himself that he never imagined a place like this existed in the Spartan territory. One of the onlookers wonders who these well-dressed newcomers are, noting they must be high-ranking. The man they first chased steps forward, telling everyone to listen up. He points dramatically toward the pair, announcing to the crowd, "These people are doctors. His voice rings with newfound hope as he declares that the two of them will cure their illness. The crowd erupts, grabbing at Macaron and desperately asking if they can truly be cured. Flinching back, she's completely overwhelmed by this sudden surge of desperate hands. From the relative safety behind Ganache, she pleads with them not to rush all at once. Ganache takes control, calmly instructing the sick to form a line to be examined one by one. But their pleas only grow louder as they beg for help, one person crying out for their sick child. As the desperate cries of, "Please, continue," Ganache lets out a weary sigh, feeling the weight of their suffering. He turns, his voice firm and commanding, as he orders everyone to quiet down. Suddenly, with a powerful heave, Macaron single-handedly stops a collapsing wooden structure from crushing the crowd. Guess she's been hitting the gym. Wood and stone shatter and fly through the air as the structure gives way. Crash. The debris falls, and Ganache screams her name in a panic as the crowd recoils in shock. Unfazed, Macaron stands firm amidst the chaos, pointing forward with fiery determination. An overhead view shows the makeshift barrier she created, separating them from the stunned crowd. As she watches another patient, she grimly notes, "That's the 10th one." She glances over at Ganache, thinking with concern that he looks completely exhausted. A close-up shows him clenching his eyes shut, clearly pushing himself past his limits. His body finally gives out, and he begins to collapse from sheer exhaustion. Wham! He falls forward, and Macaron rushes to catch him, desperately calling his name. Cradling his head, she thinks it's no use, but then scolds him, saying it will all be for nothing if he collapses now, as the black sickness continues to spread. But then two of the afflicted look at their arms in astonishment as the dark marks of the sickness begin to fade away. Macaron's eyes widen with a jolt of hope as she notices the miraculous recovery. "Ganache, your healing is working," she exclaims, a joyful smile spreading across her face. Her joy fades back to worry as he remains unconscious in her arms, and she calls his name again. Her desperate cries for Ganache echo as the scene fades into darkness. The story flashes back to a memory of a small, lifeless bird lying on the ground. A young boy with striking golden eyes. A younger Ganache stares down at the fallen creature. A golden light sparkles from his fingertips as he reaches out to heal the tiny bird. Later, the young Ganache sits alone on his bed, a somber look on his face. He gently holds the revived bird, which now chirps sweetly in his hands. A soft, relieved smile graces his face as he looks at the life he saved. But the moment of happiness is fleeting as he sits alone in his dark room again. He looks up as a bright light shines from his doorway, signaling someone's approach. The memory shows his own small, bandaged hand as he thinks his name. Another bandaged hand, larger and more delicate, gently touches his neck. Standing before the brilliant light, he looks up at the approaching figure and says, "Mother." He touches his own neck, remembering her touch with a pained expression. His mother's voice echoes, warning him that for every life he saves with his power, he will pay an equivalent price. She gently touches his face, pleading with him not to pay that price with his own life and asking if he understands. The memory shifts to his parents, his father's voice warning that pity can cost him his life and urging him to focus on the lives he could save. "You are not a hero," the voice concludes with finality. "You are a doctor." His mother's bandaged hand rests on his shoulder as the heavy words sink in, leaving him speechless. She seems to realize her words were too heavy for a child as the memory shows a plague doctor's mask resting on a nearby table. Overwhelmed by the burden of his gift, the young Ganache begins to weep silently. Holding the little bird, he thinks to himself, "I want to see mother and father," hinting at a painful separation. In his memory, a small bandaged hand reaches out from a brightly lit doorway toward young Ganache. He wonders if the dead can ever come back, as his mother, wrapped in bandages, calls his name from the light. A promotional image features a fiery red-haired girl with a determined look. His mother embraces him tightly, a moment of comfort tinged with sadness. The sound of him stirring brings us back to the present. As an adult Ganache awakens in bed, he sees Macaron, who has fallen asleep in a chair while watching over him. Sitting up, he quietly observes her as she rests. Suddenly, Macaron jolts awake, wondering aloud if she pushed herself too hard again. She informs a stunned Ganache that he was unconscious for 2 whole days. "What about the patients?" he asks frantically, clutching his head as a wave of pain hits him. Macaron rushes to his side, steadying him and anxiously asking if he's all right. Her red eyes are filled with worry as she looks down at him. She reassures him that everyone recovered and went home, gently telling him to rest. But a flashback reveals their joy was short-lived. The moment Ganesh collapsed, the cured people fell into a panic silence. The ground cracks beneath them as a sinister dark energy erupts, sending a man flying. Ugh, he cries out in agony as shadowy tendrils engulf him. Erg. The darkness spreads, attacking more villagers as one lets out a terrified eek! Yeah. A piercing scream rings out, and Macaron turns to see the horrifying chaos unfolding behind her. "We have to run," someone shouts, as the monstrous shadow consumes the entire village. Back in the present, Macaron stands solemnly with Ganesh and others, the grim memory weighing on them. She holds a letter, surprised to see it's an official summons from the Crown Prince. Her eyes narrow with resolve as she thinks to herself, "This could be my chance." With the red cloak he gave her nearby, she begins to pen a reply. In her letter, she states she has something to return, and politely asks for a moment of his time. The scene shifts to the blonde man, Tart, his expression unreadable as he reads her letter. He covers his mouth, a smirk playing on his lips as he tries to suppress his amusement. He lets out a low chuckle, then bursts into laughter. Just as I expected, he thinks. A flashback shows a mountain of sealed letters, hinting at his overwhelming popularity. As a young boy, the Crown Prince coolly dismisses a pile of gifts, ordering his maid to throw them all away. He glances at a single ornate gift box and letter, simply acknowledging it with an "I see." His maid gushes about his popularity, wondering if Lady Eclair still harbors feelings for him. With unshakable confidence, the young prince declares that no one could possibly refuse him. The scene transitions, adorned with delicate strawberry blossoms. Macaron is shown dressed in an elegant pink gown, preparing for her visit. She arrives at the magnificent Imperial palace, realizing she's back once again. She walks gracefully through the palace's lush and vibrant gardens. A narration explains that, without a prime minister, the Crown Prince Tardis, the one who holds the scales of justice, for 8 years he has guided the empire to unprecedented prosperity and development. He has completely captivated the nation's heart, especially its young women, who gaze at him with adoration. Surrounded by beautiful ladies, his rumored affairs and future marriage are a topic of national obsession. As nearby nobles fret about the prince's fan club, Macaron is distracted by an enchanting fragrance. She sniffs the air curiously, trying to pinpoint the source of the beautiful scent. A gray-haired attendant politely leads the way, addressing her as Lady Macaron. Her eyes widen in awe at the sight before her. She enters a breathtaking sunroom filled with exotic, luminous purple flowers. "Wow," she breathes, realizing this is the source of the mysterious, sweet scent. She marvels at the flowers, thinking their otherworldly beauty is unlike anything she's ever seen. Staring at the blossoms, she's struck by a strange and unexpected feeling of nostalgia. "It seems you like flowers," a smooth voice comments as a man in elegant sandals steps into view. It's the Crown Prince, Tart. Macaron quickly curtsies, formally greeting him on behalf of the Spartan family. With a dazzling smile, Tart compliments Macaron, telling her she looks as lovely as a little berry. She laughs bashfully and thanks him, completely charmed by his sweet words. He explains that the otherworldly purple flowers are a brand new, unnamed variety developed by the Imperial family. He gently places a bouquet of the mysterious flowers into her hands. As she accepts them, she thinks it would be a shame to pick such beautiful blossoms. She closes her eyes and takes a deep breath, realizing the flower's scent is strangely familiar. "Is that so?" Tart asks, his expression shifting as he notes the flower has never been revealed to the public before. She backpedals fast, nervously insisting it was just a random feeling and he should pay her no mind. He gives her a knowing little smirk, simply saying, "I see." He's definitely not buying it. Leaning closer, he confesses that he wanted to see her again, saying her name with a soft smile. He looks at her with genuine affection, the moment feeling warm and bright. But a narration reveals they both sensed a fundamental difference between them. Despite this, they share a moment of genuine laughter over tea, clearly enjoying each other's company. But that same difference is precisely what drew them together, even though they knew they shouldn't give in to those feelings. As they sit together in the sunlit room, the pleasant atmosphere causes Macaron to remember the real, grim reason for her visit. A dark memory flashes in her mind of sick villagers as she recalls the unknown disease spreading through her territory. Tart listens intently as she explains the disease is beyond her family's ability to handle, formally requesting the Imperial family's help. He correctly guesses this involves Lord Ganache of the Tureen family, the infamous plague doctors. Surprised, she asks how he knows of Ganache, but Tart simply replies that it would be odd if he didn't. He grimly recalls the rumors about the Tureen family's inhumane research that got them exiled to the eastern province. He puts her on the spot, asking if she was actually in her territory with Ganache, and she can only stammer in response. With a sharp tap of his fork, he begins to consider the gravity of her situation. He states that attempting to handle a dangerous plague with just the two of them is unthinkable. She quickly reassures him that she is fine and that it was a choice she made willingly. He acknowledges the stress she must be under and formally agrees that the Imperial family will lead the investigation, telling her to rest easy. She shoots up from her seat in disbelief, asking if he's serious. Overcome with gratitude, she bows deeply and thanks him again and again. She's so relieved, thinking that his help might finally lighten Ganache's heavy burden. Tart watches her with a warm, reassuring smile. As she curtsies, he gives her a charming wink, his playful demeanor returning. Hesitantly, she looks up at him with a hopeful question in her eyes. She nervously asks if she might visit again, and he graciously tells her she is always welcome. As Macaron departs, Tart watches her from the doorway. His warm smile fades, replaced by a somber and conflicted expression as she walks away. She makes her way through the opulent hall, her meeting concluded. Suddenly, another woman with long dark hair brushes past her. Macaron turns, sensing she's no longer alone. A stunning blonde lady with horn-shaped hair buns appears, holding the hand of a quiet brown-haired girl. Macaron's eyes widen in shock at the unexpected encounter. The blonde lady glares back, her expression dripping with annoyance. Looks like the fan club has arrived. The story pauses for a moment, showing off the series' vibrant heroines. The two newcomers stand before Macaron, effectively blocking her path. Macaron offers a tentative hello, trying to be polite. The blonde lady immediately demands to know what she's doing there, while her companion questions her for meeting the prince alone. Macaron admits it's her first time at the palace and tries to explain, but the blonde isn't having it. The blonde lady smugly declares that she has tea with the prince monthly, and today just happens to be her day. She delivers a final, icy warning, telling Macaron not to do anything that might disrupt her plans or sour her mood. With a dismissive turn, the blonde lady walks away, leaving Macaron standing in awkward silence. As the two ladies head deeper into the palace, their long hair flows behind them. Watching them leave, Macaron realizes the blonde, Lady Eclair, is upset and feels guilty for unintentionally getting in her way. Hesitantly, she takes a step forward, murmuring to herself. Macaron looks up in surprise at a quiet, dark-haired girl. The girl stands demurely in a modest green plaid dress. With a gentle smile, the girl greets her. "It's been a while, Macaron." Macaron is stunned, thinking that it's her old acquaintance, Juju, and that it's rare for her to initiate a conversation. A bit of backstory reveals Juju Claudette Crescent is the daughter of a now bankrupt house, her alchemist father's failures leaving them destitute. However, thanks to their family's past contributions, the Imperial family allowed them to keep their noble title. To survive, their sole heiress was adopted by the wealthiest family in the empire, the Custards. And that young heiress, seen here with glasses, was none other than Juju. Back in the present, Juju looks at Macaron with a bashful expression. Juju is touched that Macaron remembered her, but Macaron thinks of course she did, even if Juju is always with Lady Eclair. Macaron asks why she's waiting outside, and Juju explains the tea party inside isn't for her. Shocked, Macaron asks if she's just going to stand out here the whole time, but Juju insists it's fine. A thoughtful smile crosses Macaron's face as she gets an idea. As two adorable chibis, Macaron pops up and invites a startled Juju to take a walk with her. She grins, saying she needs to work off all the tea sweets anyway. Juju's face lights up with a warm, genuine smile. Macaron wonders why she's laughing, and Juju softly replies, "Oh, it's just that we've never really talked alone like this before." Macaron looks back at her with a gentle, knowing smile. For Juju, who had been shut away for so long, the simple beauty of the evening sun was a forgotten treasure. As night falls, their pleasant day together comes to an end. Macaron returns to her room, calling out cheerfully, "I'm home, Ganache." But she stops short, confused to find the room is empty. She bursts out the door in a panic, looking for him. She asks her maid, Meringue, if she's seen Ganesh, and the maid begins to point the way. The scene shifts to a moonlit conservatory filled with flowers. Holding a pot of flowers, Macaron wanders through the beautiful indoor garden. Suddenly, her eyes light up as she spots him. There he is, Ganesh, sitting peacefully in a chair amidst a sea of roses. She muses to herself that he truly has a face as sweet and gentle as fresh chocolate. An aside explains the custom of naming children after food like macaron, eclair, and sherbet to wish them health and long life. The Tureen family's curse and their unique naming tradition both spring from the same simple wish for happiness. Holding the flowers, Macaron prays that these heartfelt wishes will be remembered through time. She sits before him, looking him in the eye and declaring, "I believe in you, Ganesh." He tells her that she's a true healer, someone who can save others. Filled with resolve, she thinks to herself that she wants to be his strength too. She wants to protect the Spartan lands from the mysterious black disease that threatens them. And she'll do it, even if it means using every last ounce of her power. Whoosh! As she channels her energy, she's hit by a sudden, strange feeling of emptiness. Thud. She collapses to the floor, completely drained and utterly bewildered. Ganesh looks down at her, calmly asking what she's doing on the floor. With her eyes spiraling, she thinks she'd like to know the answer to that too, as her entire body just froze. He looks down with a hint of concern, taking in the scene. Kneeling, he asks if she's all right, but she can barely respond. She lies helpless in the cracked floor, realizing her body has no strength left at all. The maid Meringue rushes in, screaming for her lady in a panic. Without a word, Ganesh moves to lift her from the floor. He sweeps her into his arms, leaving Macaron staring up at him in wide-eyed surprise. With a determined look, the dark-haired man decides, "I will carry her to the bedroom." He gently takes her wrist, his touch light and careful. Sitting by her bedside, he holds her hand, watching over her as she rests. Her red eyes flutter open, and she looks up at him, her heart pounding. He gives her a soft, reassuring look as she wakes up. She looks at him, considering that, perhaps by using her power as a medium, he reveals a shocking truth. I was the one who got healed instead. He explains that his own power had been completely drained, and while he was prepared for the consequences of using it, his body wasn't recovering like it used to. A slow smile spreads across his face as he realizes he's feeling the source of Macaron's incredible power. He muses that while his recovery is great, he's now left wondering how to handle her immense strength. "How rude," she exclaims, playfully punching him for calling her powerful, as he just laughs it off. Taking her hand, he leans in and tells her he actually thinks she's really cool. She's completely stunned, realizing he stopped her full power punch with zero effort. Clutching her chest, she wonders if this weak feeling is what it's like to be a normal lady. She clenches her fist, a new thought forming. Maybe this is actually better. She imagines that if her power disappears, perhaps the prejudice against her will finally fade. Lost in thought, she wonders what life would be like if she were just a normal girl. A painful memory surfaces of a lonely little girl, thinking she wouldn't have to be alone anymore. She tearfully recalls wanting to see her mother and wishing she wouldn't accidentally hurt anyone. Huddled on her bed, her younger self wonders how long she must live in fear and solitude. Back in the present, she sits on her bed, a quiet declaration hanging in the air. "I am." The man's eyes widen, startled by the sudden shift in her mood. Tears well up in her eyes and begin to fall. He rushes to her side, asking if she's crying, but she quickly denies it. He gently places a hand on her shoulder, his expression full of concern. Leaning in, he softly apologizes for pushing her too far. He offers to stay with her until he can find a way to restore her power. He looks her in the eyes and makes a solemn vow. "I promise I won't leave you alone." She stares back at him, her expression a mix of surprise and hope. A radiant, heartfelt smile finally breaks through her tears. The two share a cute, comforting moment together. A moment later, a cart overflowing with delicious desserts is wheeled in. He watches with a warm smile as she happily devours the sweets. As she continues to eat, a strange vision of a glowing pink bunny flashes. The plates are wiped clean in record time, and he can only think, she really does eat well. Having finished her feast, Macaron takes a delicate sip of tea. He suddenly gets her attention, a curious look on his face. She beams at him, looking completely refreshed and happy. "Oh?" she replies, her head tilted in question. A sly grin spreads across his face as he points out the obvious. Her power is back, isn't it? She gasps, blushing with pure joy at the realization. Sometime later, a narrator explains that Ganesh had already left by the time her father returned. A memory shows the blue-haired Ganesh waving goodbye with a charming smile, promising to see her again soon. Back in the present, Macaron sits alone, thinking the spring debutante ball feels like it was only yesterday. A maid interrupts her thoughts, reporting that there's been no word of an Imperial family visit. Macaron's eyes narrow slightly as she notes the unsettling quietness of the mansion. She knows from experience that when it gets this quiet, you should never let your guard down. A maid bursts in with news. The head of House Montblanc arrived in the territory this morning. Looking flustered, the maid adds that he's already through the main gate and will be there any second. A pink-haired lady hurries through a doorway, ordering a maid to make sure no one finds out about the Duke's arrival. A stern-looking man with long white hair and purple eyes stands poised and ready. The pink-haired lady stands at the top of a grand staircase, acknowledging the arrival of Duke Montblanc. Duke Montblanc's expression is one of pure resolve as he thinks to himself, "Today is the day." They face off across the cavernous hall as the pink-haired lady steels herself, thinking, "I'll finally defeat you." The scene shifts as a hand with sharp blue nails elegantly picks up a pink macaron. It's Lady Eclair, who gives a sly smile while being praised as wonderful. The camera pans out, revealing Eclair is the star of a glamorous photo shoot. A series of shots captures her flawless modeling as she gracefully sips tea and poses with various sweets. The mustached cameraman is thrilled, declaring her last shot is definitely next month's cover. Eclair's photo shoot is interrupted as she spots a dark-haired woman in a blue dress standing in the doorway. The woman, Juju, watches with a stoic expression, resigning herself to another late night. Eclair looks away with a slight smile, musing that she really has been busy lately. Later, she unwinds with a luxurious soak in a flower-filled bathtub. Relaxing in the water, she calls out for Jujube. Jujube, sitting in a nearby chair with a book, confirms that she's right there. While relaxing, Eclair complains that her body is completely stiff from the shoot, as Jujube adds that she lost count of all the dress changes. Jujube looks up from her book, her brow furrowed with worry as she tells Eclair she's working too much. Noticing Eclair's distant expression, Jujube asks if something is on her mind. Jujube gently tells her not to feel that way and to lean on her when things get hard, but her kindness is met with a sudden, angry slam as Eclair throws down a mirror. A stunned Jujube watches as Eclair snaps, telling her to stop meddling and know her place. Crushed by the harsh words, Jujube quietly agrees and lowers her head. Now in her robe, Eclair looks away, her eyes welling with tears of regret. She approaches Jujube and gently cups her face, her anger replaced by concern. She warns Jujube that exposure to chemicals will ruin her skin, pointing out that it's already starting to get rough. Turning away, Eclair offers her the honey bath they recently acquired. Eclair decides a grand tea party is just what she needs to blow off some steam, but as she stands alone, a single tear betrays her unspoken sadness. She walks away, leaving Jujube to sit alone in the quiet room. Jujube looks up, a knowing and gentle smile on her face, completely unfazed by the outburst. She sits patiently in the shadow, cast by Eclair's retreating figure. Thinking about the party, Jujube decides ordinary flowers won't do, and plans to decorate the garden with Spartan berries to match the year's magenta theme. A quiet voice asks if she's listening, and she looks down to see the silhouette of a cat. The cat, a cute black creature with a red marking, looks up as Jujube calls it by name. Cereza. Meow Cereza lets out a cheerful cry, its eyes squeezed shut in a happy grin. Suddenly, there are two cats playfully circling her, their magic sparkling in the air. She chuckles at her furry companion, asking if it really wants to go outside that badly. A flashback explains that during the witch hunts, real witches hid among humans their bloodline and inescapable fate. She recalls being brought to her new home, always knowing she was different. The world's cruel labels never hurt her, because she knew she was the real thing, not just some alchemist. She decided then to live as someone else's shadow, hiding her power until the day someone could see her for who she truly is. Back in the present, she smiles fondly as her little cat lets out a soft meow. She walks down a gilded hallway, Cereza at her heels, remembering the cat has been with her since birth. A man with cat ears holds a dark-haired woman gently amidst a field of blue flowers under a full moon. The scene shifts to the Spartan territory of Tilden, where the family once struggled to manage their fertile lands. The first head of the family is depicted as an inexperienced chibi ruler. Luckily, the land's settlers were kind and hardworking people. Thanks to them, the family's people-first policy thrived, and their farming skills flourished. A mysterious woman in a wide-brimmed hat observes a bustling town, impressed that the reality is even more prosperous than the reports she read. However, she notes the terrible condition of the roads and questions if the territory is being managed properly. A thought bubble reveals a desire for Tilden to become a more diverse center of trade. As she inspects the flowers, the woman in the hat realizes the Spartan berries she's looking for are nowhere to be found. She worries about getting an earful from Eclair for sneaking out, imagining her friend's lecture on proper decorum. Her thoughts are interrupted by her spotted black cat, Cereza, affectionately rubbing against her leg. She scoops up her furry companion with a warm smile, holding it close. She resolves to find the seeds, determined not to cause any misunderstandings now that she's come this far. Nya Cereza purrs contentedly in her arms, clearly enjoying the outing. As she walks through the town with Cereza, she maintains a calm, pleasant demeanor. Her attention is caught by two well-dressed men having a quiet conversation nearby. She glances their way, her expression turning serious as she observes them. The two men continue their discussion, unaware they're being watched. From a distance, she stands and watches the two men, a sense of caution in her posture. Holding Cereza, she thinks to herself that something about their presence feels strange. She deduces they're connected to the royal family and wonders what they're doing in Spartan territory, realizing it could spell trouble. Despite the risk, she admits to herself that she can't help but be curious as Cereza looks up at her. Whoosh! Acting on her unspoken wish, Cereza leaps from her arms and dashes towards the men as she cries out its name. Huff! She's left panting, trying to catch her breath after the sudden chase. Standing alone in an alley, she takes a moment to compose herself. She looks around, confused, realizing she might have lost her way while following the cat. NGH. Suddenly, a hand covers her mouth and she's dragged into the shadows, struggling against her captor. On the ground, and disoriented, she looks up to see the two men from before looming over her, wondering who they are. The two men stare down at her impassively, one of them silently questioning her identity. They conclude she's no commoner and wonder if she followed them, while Cereza growls fiercely in the background, ready to pounce. Nya! Little cat lunges, but a hand swiftly moves to intercept its attack. Noting she has a familiar, one of the men deems her too suspicious and gives a chilling order. Let's eliminate her. A vision flashes of a pink-haired woman, desperately thinking she must warn the Spartan family. Her thoughts focused on Macaron. The scene shifts to Macaron herself, who turns with a look of quiet resolve. Back at the training grounds, Duke Montblanc senses a disturbance, getting a bad feeling as he watches her. He breaks the silence, coldly asking what she's staring at. Clang! In a flash, he attacks with a wooden sword, but she parries his strike perfectly. Straining against his force, she glares back at him, addressing him as, "Your Grace." She notes that his movements have become much smoother than before. However, she senses a condensed power inside him that isn't circulating correctly through his body. She eyes him with concern, wondering what's wrong, as he stares back with piercing purple eyes. A voice cries out, "Milady!" as the two continue their intense sparring session in the castle courtyard. Their training is cut short by a dark premonition as news arrives. A massive fire has broken out in Tilden, leaving Macaron stunned. The horrific reality of the fire flashes through her mind, showing cloaked figures and a sick child. No. Overcome with urgency, she realizes she has to go there herself immediately. With fiery determination in her eyes, she declares that she has to rush to the scene. As she bolts, the Duke grabs her arm, sharply telling her to wait. He stops her, demanding to know where she's going, and questioning if she really thinks she can handle a fire alone. A frantic maid runs towards them, calling out, "My lady!" The maid announces she's prepared a magnificent carriage so Macaron can hurry to Tilden. But when they turn, they find the Duke already sitting inside, ready to go. Stunned, she stares as he calls her name, her red eyes flaring with an otherworldly intensity. Kya! As the maid screams for her lady, the startled horses rear up in panic. Declaring the horses too slow, Macaron channels her incredible strength and lifts the entire carriage off the ground. With a fierce battle cry, she announces she's running there on her own. And with a mighty heave, she hurls the entire carriage through the air. The Duke goes flying as he's ejected from the now airborne carriage, while a chibi-style maid watches in utter disbelief. The journey continues under a bright, sparkling sky. Whoosh! A magnificent white and gold carriage grinds to a sudden halt. A pink-haired young woman in a stylish outfit steps out, drawing the attention of the gathering crowd. She swings the door open, happily announcing their early arrival. But the door's stuck, and the tiny girl has to heave with all her might to get it open. Leaning out, she calls with a cheerful smile, "Grand Duke, Kia!" A scream from inside reveals the white-haired Grand Duke has collapsed. She rushes to his side, telling him to hang on, but he weakly insists he's fine. Now inside, she frantically shouts for water, screaming that there's a fire. They both look out to see a nearby building completely engulfed in flames. Her eyes widen in horror as she realizes that's where people infected with the black sickness were gathered. As a victim stumbles through the burning street, she thinks to herself that her bad premonitions are never wrong. People rush with buckets, desperately trying to fight the blaze as a man shouts to clear a path. The pink-haired girl clenches her fist, thinking everyone will die if she doesn't act. She may just be a girl, but she can do something. With a surge of determination, she tightens her gloved fist. She walks up to a fire hydrant on the cobblestone street, her plan set. She orders the shocked onlookers to stand back while the Grand Duke watches from a distance. "Move away, quickly," she screams, her face a mask of fierce concentration. A powerful energy begins to build around her. Grunting with effort, she begins to rip the entire fire hydrant straight out of the ground. Clank. Water erupts from the broken pipe as she tears the hydrant free. Ha! She hoists the massive hydrant, turning it into a makeshift water cannon as the Grand Duke stares in disbelief. A massive geyser of water shoots into the sky, dousing the flames as the crowd watches in stunned silence. The Grand Duke is in shock, thinking to himself that she pulled it out with sheer force. A narration explains that this is the Spartan secret technique. She unleashes her hidden art. Heavenly rivers descent. The powerful torrent of water crashes down, finally extinguishing the raging fire. A man and woman in the crowd can only stare, with the man muttering that it's unbelievable. The woman marvels at her power, while the man concludes she's no ordinary lady. A sudden realization dawns on the woman. Could she be the legendary Lady Spartan who hasn't appeared in 10 years? As debris falls, the crowd panics, with one woman yelling at everyone to grab water from the hydrant. The fire may be out, but the danger isn't over. Wait, the Grand Duke grabs her arm, stopping her from going further. He demands to know what she was doing running in there alone, noting her unusual stubbornness. She stays silent, but he presses on, accusing her of hiding something. His eyes narrow as he demands she tell him what really happened in the back alley. He stands over her, his command echoing through the smoky air. "Speak!" He repeats his question, wanting to know what on earth happened there. As she looks away, a flashback shows a dark-haired man, Ganesh, wondering about his grace. She and the Grand Duke stand together amidst the smoldering ruins. A grim memory surfaces of a family with the plague, raising questions about judgment and Ganesh of the Tureen family. Tears well up in the pink-haired girl's eyes as the weight of the situation hits her. Looking at the Grand Duke, she makes a desperate plea. "Can you please save me?" Tears stream down her face as she waits for his answer. He turns away, coldly telling her to stop crying. With his back to her, he states that a true leader is not ruled by emotions. With a flash of his sword, he shatters a wooden barricade blocking their path. He looks back at her over his shoulder, asking if she intends to just keep standing there. She clutches her head, overwhelmed by the chaos and his cold demeanor. Shaking it off, she points ahead and shouts, "This way!" as they run through the devastated street together. Trusting in her own power, she strides forward into the inferno. But as she and the Duke survey the destruction, she grits her teeth, knowing she made a promise to save someone named Ganesh no matter what. Realizing she can't do it alone, she resolves to rescue Ganesh first, then tell her father everything and fix the system. A desperate prayer echoes through the flames, "Please stay safe." They arrive in the town square, but it's eerily deserted. The white-haired Duke finds it strange that no one is around. He questions if anyone was even here to begin with, while Macaron looks on in confusion. Suddenly, they spot a small, spotted cat sitting calmly amidst the raging fire, making them wonder why it's so peaceful. Staring at the mysterious feline, Macaron softly asks who it is. As its tail playfully swishes, a look of sudden understanding crosses her face. Whoosh! The cat bolts, and she yells for it to wait, warning that it's dangerous as she and the Duke give chase. With a little meow, the cat leads them down the fiery cobblestone streets. Scratch, scratch! It paws insistently at a wooden door, trying to get their attention. The Duke realizes the cat is trying to tell them something is inside. The tiny cat seems to tell them to back up, as Macaron prepares to smash the door down with a powerful punch. Just as she swings, the cat leaps in front of her fist, but the Duke snatches it out of the air, only to get a fierce meow and a face full of claws for his trouble. He stands there completely dumbfounded, holding the feisty cat at arm's length, as Macaron wonders what just happened. The two cautiously step into the building the cat led them to. A sudden wave of cold air hits Macaron, making her gasp in confusion. "Lady Macaron, look ahead," the Duke says, his voice tense. Her eyes fall upon a pair of lace-gloved hands, tightly bound by thick rope. She sees the familiar, long, dark hair of the captive. It's Juju, bound and unconscious, surrounded by sharp crystals of ice. Macaron stares in disbelief, unable to process what she's seeing. Her mind screams her friend's name. Jujube? The Duke asks if she knows the woman, and Macaron confirms she does but finds it bizarre as she examines the strange ice. She tries to break the ice with her bare hand, wondering how Jujube could possibly be in Tilden. As she reaches for her friend, a voice urgently calls her name, Lady Macaron. Her gaze snaps to Jujube's face, only to find her eyes are completely black and empty. Her own eyes widen in sheer terror as she realizes something is terribly, terribly wrong with Jujube.